Hi, I'm Johnny and you're watching the Hexy Beast. On today's episode, I'm going to be doing a quick review of this game right here, X-Men Mutant Insurrection from Fantasy Flight Games. Anyway, let's get it to the table and see how it plays, shall we? So this is X-Men Mutant Insurrection. Calling all mutants, Professor Xavier needs your help. Become the X-Men and battle to protect humanity. X-Men Mutant Insurrection invites you and up to 5 other mutants to safeguard our world while playing as iconic characters like Gambit, Rogue, Storm, Cyclops, Wolverine and more. Choose from 8 different plots and launch the Blackbird on missions around the world as you fight your way to the final showdown. Whether you're infiltrating the elite society known as the Hellfire Club, investigating the mysterious happenings on the island of Krakoa, or taking on Magneto and the Brotherhood of Mutants, X-Men Mutant Insurrection brings some of the greatest stories and comics straight to your tabletop. So, let's open it up and have a look, shall we? Okay, so to begin, what we're going to do is we're going to construct this Blackbird, which comes in the box, and we're going to place this threat tracker on the board. As well as that, I'm just going to grab the 3 school cards with these backs on them and lay them out by here, like so. In a nice, neat supply. Basically, this is going to be the free spaces that's available to us throughout the game. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take 5 of these location decks and choose 3 of them because we're going to be playing a 2-character game. And the 3 I'm going to pick are just going to be these 3 on the top here. So I'm just going to grab them and place them underneath the school cards we just placed. And we're basically just going to set them up like this below the other cards we just placed. And then we're going to take the other 2 locations and we're going to return them to the box. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take these bonds and we're going to shuffle them up. And we're also going to take these mutant cards with the orange backs on them and we're going to lay them next to the school, somewhere in easy reach. As well as that, we're going to take these 3 colour-coded threat decks and we're going to place them in the slots provided at the top of the threat track. Just like so. Then we're just going to take this larger enemy deck and we're going to place it somewhere nearby, just for when a card calls for them. Okay, so now I'm just going to make a supply of training tokens, health markers, objective markers, and showdown markers, and I'll show you how all these work throughout the game, so just set them off somewhere to the side. Okay, so now what we do is we take a story card, and in this case I'm going to be playing the Brotherhood of Mutants, and then we're going to follow its setup instructions, which in this case is put the Xavier's Dream into play and read it aloud. So I'm just going to put this down here. I'm going to go find Xavier's Dream, which is by here, which says, "At long last the day has come. I have trained you, my X-Men, to show the world the good that mutants can do, and I fear a great foe is near." Okay, so it says here, these are our objectives, look. During play, after I complete a mission, I get to place 1 objective marker on this card. And basically, if at the end of the round, I have objection markers on this card, is at least the player count plus 2, then I can flip this over. So that's how we know what we're going to be doing. So now it's time to go pick some characters. And the characters I have chosen for this battle are going to be Wolverine and Cyclops. Also, don't forget that you also need to grab their assist card. So in this case, Cyclops has this assist card and this assist card. I'm then going to take the standees that I've chosen and place them on the Blackbird ready to be used in the first round of the game. Then we have one last thing before we start. It's going to be placing this threat tracker. And because we're playing an easy game, we're going to be placing it on the number 2 space on the threat track. Also, don't forget to put the dice we'll be using to play the game nearby, and we have fight dice, which are good at fighting stuff. We have power dice, which have a lot of these symbols on it, and you'll see why they're useful soon. And we have teamwork dice, which have a lot of these X-Men symbols on them. They all have every symbol on them, but they just have different denominations. Anyway, let me just show you how turns work a second. And one last thing before we get going, we get to choose one of these missions to flip over, and I think I'm going to flip over this part. Okay, so the first part in the turn of X-Men Mutant Insurrection is the deploy phase, which is where our heroes will deploy to either various missions or to the school in order to perform their effects. And you may notice this little red arrow here. Let me just show you how this mission works a minute. Basically, in order to complete this mission, we would need to complete all of its objectives by rolling dice. This little red arrow by here, by the way, actually means we have to resolve them in top to bottom order, so we can't just choose anyone we want. And we would do this by completing objectives. And the objectives are actually the horizontal markers here. The colour of these also represent the threat level we're on. And as you can see, because our threat marker here is actually on the number 2, we are in the green threat. So right now, all we have to do the top row is get 1 teamwork symbol. In the second row, we need 2 of these power symbols. And then in the third row, we just need 1 power symbol. And if we take a closer look at this, we can see that actually it has a certain success and failure conditions. And basically, after all players have gone, if all of this card isn't complete, we're going to be resolving the failure condition. But if we do complete it, any hero still standing on it will be returned to the Blackbird, and we will get to reduce the threat by 2. So, first of all, let's do our deploy phase. And I think I'm going to deploy both of these guys, Cyclops and Wolverine, to the sinking ship. Now, I've got to choose who is the active player. And I think, just to make this easy, I'm going to make Wolverine the active player. Okay, once we've deployed our character, we then go on to the mission phase, in which we choose one active player, and then we roll dice to try and resolve these icons. So let's do that now. I'm going to show you how the mission phase works. Okay, so each character in the game comes with its own dice pool and ability. As well as that, they also come with an assist card, which can be given to other characters in order to use the special ability that's on it, as well as share the 2 dice on the end of their dice pool. So looking as Wolverine is in that mission, and we're looking for a lot of teamwork, I don't think Wolverine is actually the best choice for this fight. So I think for my active player, I'm actually going to choose Cyclops, which rolls 2 of each kind of dice, which is nice and handy for me to show you how it works. Also may notice this power says once per round, we may spend up to 1 of these power results to turn up to 2 of my dice into an attack result. So let's, shall we just roll some dice for Cyclops and see what happens, shall we? Okay, so that's Cyclops' dice pool of 2 red, 2 yellow, and 2 blue. Ready to roll and try and complete the mission. So let's do that now. Okay, so rolling dice in this game is very similar to Yahtzee, or if you've played Elder Sign, very similar to that, in which we first roll our dice and then we get 2 rerolls in order to secure the icons we need in order to complete the card. So let's roll the dice now. Okay, so obviously we have got one of the symbols we need for the top, and as you can see here, they need to be resolved top to bottom. So for this round, I think I might actually keep one of these, and one of these, and one of these. Now I get to reroll my dice twice. You may also notice that this dice has a little magneto symbol on it. Some of the cards will have effects that basically mean if I choose to reroll this, I would have to activate the effect. But in this case, none of them exist. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reroll all 3 of these in order to see if we can actually complete this card. Okay. So Cyclops has rolled another teamwork symbol, but we didn't need it. We've got hits, and we've rolled this again. So what we're going to do is we're going to try once more. This is our last reroll, in order to hopefully get one of those power symbols. Yes, we did. Okay, so now what we're able to do is actually complete this mission. So what we're going to do, in order from top to bottom, is first we're going to draft this here in order to complete this objective. So now that objective is complete, we're going to take one of these and place it on there to show that we've completed it. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to try and complete the second row. And we're going to do that with these 2. So that's complete. And then we're going to take another objective marker and put it over the top to show that that is complete. And finally, with our last dice, we are going to complete the bottom row, which will actually complete the card. And if you remember, our Professor Xavier's dream card says anytime we complete a mission, we will then place one of our objective tokens onto this card to mark that we are one step closer to progressing the story. Also, as you can see, the reward on this thing is actually to reduce threat by 2. So we're going to do that now. So that's 1, 2. Even though the threat is on 0, it can't go below 1. Okay, because all of the objectives on this mission is complete, both characters are actually going to have to return to the Blackbird. And this then goes into a victory pile somewhere, so that in case we need it later. So we're just going to take this and say it's completed. Now we're going to move on to the next phase. Okay, at this point we would then move into the threat phase, which the first thing we would do is, even though we haven't got any showing, I'll see if I can find some for you now, is you may notice that some of these cards have these little threat symbols in the corner. So basically for each one of these symbols on the table showing, you would move the threat up by 1. But we haven't got no threat right now, so we're not going to worry about that. Then, after that point, we are going to flip missions based on our player count. And because we're using 2, it means that if we got nothing flipped up, we are then just going to choose one of these piles to flip up. And I think for this case, I might just flip up this one. Okay, and some, as you can see, have flip effects. So let's have a look. And in this case, it says, if Silver Samurai is completed, complete the bottom objective. Oh, this one also has to be resolved top to bottom, and it has a threat symbol on it. Okay, but luckily for us, well, not luckily really, bad thing for us is that we still have to complete all the objectives because we haven't completed the Silver Samurai mission card yet. This is another reduced threat, but it does allow us to form a bond, so I might chase this one down. Also, in the threat phase, we then draw and resolve a threat card based on our threat level, which I'll show you now. Okay, so now we check which level of the threat meter we're in, and then we draw a card from its relevant pile. So in this case, it's a green. And these come in two varieties, which are either event cards or sentinel cards. And in this case, we got a sentinel card. Basically, as you can see, what this does is that it adds one more threat symbol for the threat phase. It also means that if we re-roll any of those helmet dice, we're also going to suffer 1 damage. And it has an objective on it in order for us to complete before we actually are able to complete the mission it lands on. And if you look, it has a target, which is the most objectives, which right now is the mission Turf War that we have out on the board. So let's just place that now. Okay, so I'm just going to place this by here to remind us that it has a sentinel on it. And we can't complete this mission until we complete the sentinel. So we best get busy. So now we've done the threat phase, it's back to the deploy phase. And same as before, both are going to deploy to the same place. You'll see why I want to do this now, because I'm going to show you how the assist cards work. Okay, so we're back on the mission phase, and this time I'm also going to choose Cyclops to go first again, but I'm also going to ask for an assist from Wolverine. This means that I can now place this card next to my dice pool to gain these 2 dice instead of the 2 blues on the end of that, and it also means after assembling my dice pool I can train a fight symbol, which is really useful for me right now. So we're going to do this, and then we're going to assemble my dice pool, which in this case, if you look here, it now replaces it, is 3 reds, 2 yellows and a blue. So let's do that now. Okay, now we've assembled our dice pool. It means we now get to train one of the symbols. And if you may look, we have these little blue tokens, which have a 2 attack symbol on them. So this means that we can use this instead of a dice in order to do 2 attack. So thanks to that, we've got the assist ability, the improved dice pool, and the training token. So let's just roll our dice and see how we do against that sentinel on that turf war. Oh, let's have a look. We have a lot of helmets this time. Oof. But this is a tricky one. Okay, so basically, remember I told you before about if we move helmets, we're going to suffer 1 damage? Well, I think I'm actually going to have to reroll all 3 of these, and I'll show you why. Okay, because I'm actually going to need to reroll all 3 of those helmet symbols, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to have to suffer 1 damage. So that means that I'm going to take one of these little damage tokens and place it on Cyclops. Okay, I think these only go off once, so even though I rerolled 3 of the dice with the helmets, I don't think it means that I suffer 3 damage. But I might be wrong. Correct me in the comments. But yeah, that means that we're just going to take 1 damage, and we're going to place it on Cyclops. So I've chosen for Cyclops to keep this 1 dice here for now, and then I'm going to reroll the rest of them. Okay, so we have more symbols that we don't need, but we could use this one. And I think I'm going to also, because of this, I'm going to take another damage and reroll them all again. So first, let's take the damage and add it to Cyclops, like so. And then the last reroll for Cyclops' turn. Okay, so looking at what we've got... so what I need to destroy that sentinel is 1 attack. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to keep this one. And that's it, basically. Because this is our final dice pool now, and looking at what we got, I don't think we're going to be able to do much more. So anyway, let's just go spend some dice. Okay, so the first thing Cyclops is going to do is he's going to use the 2 power symbols and his training icon in order to complete this sentinel, which then removes it from the space. Meaning we can now actually get at the mission we're trying to do. There we go. Okay. Also, Cyclops has another 4 dice left to use. And right now, the only thing he can use it on, based on what he has, and the fact that he's got to do them in order, is he's going to use this 3 attack and put it by here, which will then complete the top row. Even though we have a couple of dice left over, there's nothing we can actually fill up. So now we're going to move on to Wolverine's turn, and he's going to try and complete the other 2 objectives. And because they're at the same place, Cyclops is going to assist Wolverine, which means you may turn 1 die showing a teamwork result to any result. This can be very useful, especially considering we have no yellow dice in our dice pool. So anyway, let's just roll 3 red and 3 blue for Wolverine. So now we've got the dice pool. We are going to, we're going to roll them. Let's see what we got. Looking at what we need 4 hits, and I don't think we've got that. Oh yes, we have, but we've got it in blue dice. I think because they're teamwork dice, actually no, I'm going to keep these 2 because they will come in actually very useful for our objective. Then I'm going to re-roll all these, and because there's no sentinel there, we're not going to take a damage. Hey, and what do we got? We've got one of the sign symbols we need. And we've also got another attack symbol. So we've got one more reroll. And I think this is probably a smart idea. Although I am going to keep this blue one. Just because it might come in handy. And this is the last reroll. So here we go. Oh, nice. I needed this. This is the one I was hoping for. Okay. So now let's go back over to the mission and see what we can do. Okay, because this needs to be resolved top to bottom because of this red arrow. It means that I need to find 4 attack and take some damage, 2 in this case, in order to even start coming close to finishing this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and this to make 4 fight, which I'm going to place here. And then I'm going to take 2 damage in order to complete this objective. So that's 2 of these damage tokens are now going on to Wolverine as well. So that's 2 of the 3 objectives complete. So we also have a couple of dice left in order to finish it off. And the ones we have left actually happen to be 4 attack and 1 of these power symbols. So it actually means that we can complete this card, thus getting its reward and putting the second objective marker onto Xavier's dream. Okay, so because this mission is complete, we get to reduce threat by 2 and we get to form a bond, and I'll show you that now. But first, let's get rid of this card and put these guys back on the Blackbird. So this card is complete. And we now have to, if I can get in focus, we now have to form a bond. Okay, so in the game, there are these things called bonds, which basically give a special effect to the player that they're linked with. Now, players can only have 2 bonds per player, and they can only have 1 bond with another player. So in a 2-player game, we can actually only have 1 bond. And the way we draw these is that we take one from the bottom, which in this case is admiration. We give it to one of the players, and then we look for the duplicate of that card, and we also give it to the other player. So right now, we're looking for another admiration. Let's have a look. Have we got admiration? There it is. And we're basically just going to place one of these with each character, and they have a special effect. Okay, let's have a closer look at this bond. While we are the active hero, we may exhaust this card to reroll any number of dice, ignoring all the helmet effects. This is actually really good. So what we're going to do is we're going to place one of these beside each character to show that they're both connected with this admiration bond. Anyway, let's move on to the threat phase. Okay, so as you can see right now, there's no threat on the board, so we're not increasing the threat meter. And we need to flip one of these missions face up, and I think we're going to be picking this one this time. Haha, this one isn't easy. And then we are now going to draw and resolve a threat card based on the threat meter, which is another one of these greens. And this time we've drawn an event. Global Crisis. Flip a face down mission face up. If there are 4 more heroes flip. Okay, so that means we're now going to have choice of 2 missions to go to. We could also deploy our heroes into separate places, but it means we wouldn't be able to use their assists. Okay, moving on to the next round. And as I can see, both Cyclops and Wolverine both have 2 damage on them. So what I'm going to be doing this turn is I'm going to be using some of the school places in order to heal that damage. Each school space also has its own effect. Well, I'm going to show you that now. Okay, so in the deploy phase, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Wolverine and I'm going to place him on this space here, which allows me to heal 2 damage and then train in any one of my choosing. And I'm going to choose to train into probably going to be powers, actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these training tokens, and I'm also going to take the 2 health tokens off his character card. Also, as part of the deployment phase, I'm going to deploy Cyclops to the Cerebro, which will heal 3 damage off him, even though he's only got 2. Then, if I'm the first hero to deploy here, I can reveal the top card of any face-down continent deck and place that card face down on either the top or the bottom of the deck. So it basically gives me a bit of precognition. So let's have a look here. So we're going to see the top card is that. Oh, we don't want that on top. We're going to put that underneath. That doesn't cause any trouble for us later. So that's the deploy phase, and obviously because we're not on the missions, we're not going to be doing any missions today. So now let's just move on to the threat phase. Okay, so as you can see in this situation, we actually have 2 threat symbols showing on the board. So that means we're actually going to raise threat level by 2. So now threat level is on 3. As well as that, we're also going to be flipping missions, which in this case we don't need to because we've already got 2 face up. And then we're going to draw and resolve our threat card for this turn. So let's have a look what we've got. We've got each hero suffers 1 damage. It's almost like there was no point in healing. There, if there are 3 or more, then we draw another threat card. But there's only 2 of us, so it doesn't matter. So we're all going to take 1 damage. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to fast forward a bit and jump to the showdown phase, and I'm going to show you how that works now. And it's going to be made out of these cards that I made of the missions that we've just previously completed, as well as the story card. Anyway, let's show you how this works. Okay, at this point, what's going to happen is that the showdown is going to initiate. And this happens basically by placing the 2 showdown cards that are made out of the mission cards in order to form a diorama. This also changes the threat phase in that we're now no longer going to do the threat phase normally, as we've put the rest of the game away. In fact, we're just going to use this icon here, which means we're going to lose 1 health each threat phase. As well as that, you may notice there's some icons on the bottom, which means in order to pass one of these showdown cards, we have to complete 1 objective, because there's 2 of us playing and it requires the amount of players minus 1 objectives in order to put one of these showdown tokens onto the card. And if we get both showdown tokens on, that means we win the game. Okay, so let's get on with that now. Okay, first what we're going to do is we're going to roll Wolverine's dice pool, and looking at the symbols we need, it's probably best if we actually roll the whole dice pool as it is without the assist. Anyway, well, we can't because we're not at the same location. So that would be 4 reds and 2 blues. So let's get them now. Okay, so here we go. We're now rolling for Wolverine. Let's see what he gets. Okay, so the only one I'm keeping here is this one, but luckily I didn't roll any helmets, so that's a good thing. So I'm just going to re-roll everything. Actually, I'll keep one of these as well, actually, no, I don't need it. We're going to re-roll everything. Okay, so what we're looking for now is some more damage, which is why I went Wolverine for this task. Oh, we got another 2. So that's at least 1 objective complete. Okay, so now we're going to do our final re-roll of this turn. And we haven't got symbols we need, but we did actually train something earlier. Also, we're going to take 2 damage because each one of these was showing a helmet. So even though we don't actually have this, but we do have this. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a training icon I trained earlier, and I'm going to add it to the top of this 3 dice. It'll turn it into a 4. That's completing 1 objective on here, and putting a showdown token on 1 card. Now, if we were able to defeat the second card as well, we would win the game. So anyway, that's roughly how the game is played. I'm just going to go back to the table now and tell you what I think. Okay, so now that you've seen how the game is played, it's time for me to tell you what I think. And the first category is aesthetics, and in this one I've given it an 8 out of 10. I feel that the art is bright and colourful. It's also quite reminiscent of the Marvel Champions card game, which I enjoy quite a bit. I also really enjoy the way that the mosaics are made for the final showdowns in order to make this big diorama and give you a bit more excitement compared to the other cards in the game. And that's where kind of my main problem is that I find the continent cards, although they are bright, they are just blue cards with symbols on them. So there's not really much art or theme that comes through in the continent decks. But apart from that, I feel the art that is there is pretty good, so that's the reason I've given it an 8 out of 10. Okay, so this brings us on to the gameplay, and for gameplay I've decided to give this a 7 out of 10. And this is mainly because, although I do like its kind of Yahtzee style dice rolling and drafting mechanics, I did find that even though it has a lot of scenarios, 8 in total, and a lot of characters in total, I did find the game to get quite repetitive quite quickly. Also found that there's a bit of a disconnect between the showdown and the first half of the game, which basically means you have to kind of pack it away halfway through. It wasn't really that big a problem for me, but I did find after a few games of it, it just started feeling samey. So for that reason, I've given it a 7 out of 10. Okay, so that brings us on to the final category, accessibility. And in this case, I've decided to give it an 8 out of 10. I feel it's actually very quick to get to the table, and the fact there's very little board to set up, it's just a case of dealing out the cards, actually makes it really easy to set up and get playing. However, I do feel that moment where you switch between the main game and the showdown can be a bit jarring, especially considering, you've got used to playing the game one way so far, and then it all changes. I quite enjoyed the dice play itself, and I found that the symbols and the descriptions were actually pretty good. But there are some places in the rulebook where I felt it sort of fell short a little bit, and it didn't explain things clearly enough, and I found myself having to read it multiple times. But overall, I think the game is actually very accessible. It'd be great to play with new gamers, as there's not much like story or anything to keep on. It's not that rules heavy, but like I said, some of the explanations are a bit iffy. So for accessibility, I've decided to give this one an 8 out of 10. So anyway, let's take a look at the total score. Okay, so that gives X-Men Mutant Insurrection a total score of 7.7 out of 10. I feel this is a good game, but like I said, for me, it lacks a bit of replayability after I've gone through the scenarios once. I don't really feel like I need to do it again. It's very similar to Elder Sign, and if the Lovecraftian theme is kind of not your thing, this is actually a very good option as an alternative. Okay, so that was my review of X-Men Mutant Insurrection by Fantasy Flight Games. If you like the look of this game or just fancy adding something to your collection, please feel free to check out the link to Firestorm Games in my description. Also, if you like what you see here, please feel free to smash that subscribe button up there and check out another one of my videos up here. Anyway, I've been Johnny, you've been watching The Hexy Beast, thank you for watching, and most of all, stay hexy everyone!